whether you write for a journal or you're writing a proposal for the board, for any product. Because your proposal probably is going to be 200 pages long. There's lots of tables, and if you're me, a lot of sexy pictures. Why should the board worry about all of that? That introduction, is your selling. You basically put your foot on the door. As I have a college classmate who ended up becoming a famed movie director in Turkey. He had an expression: once the door is ajar a little bit, there is no more door. Okay? This is true when you're writing a resume, applying for a job, a product, writing a paper. All you want to do is have that door ajar. As soon as it's ajar, there is no more door. Once you're in, it's up to you. There's not a single job interview that I didn't get the job once I was invited for an interview. Because once I'm at an interview, you know me. I'm all about show. Okay? I go there, I own the room. I actually ask them, why should you hire? Why should I accept your job offer? It kind of, startles them. It's like, we have a lot of applicants. I said, yeah, I have a lot of firms that I could go to, but I'm asking you, why should I accept your offer? Anyway, think about these. Life is not about just taking quizzes. Taking quizzes and doing the homeworks, that gets you an A. And so what? When I was in the industry, unless I had reasons to do otherwise, I never hired 4.0 students. It's typically a 4.0 student knows one thing very well: how to get a grade. And if that resume gives me a reason to think that they also know something else, I invite them for an interview. And there was one kid, he actually called and objected, why didn't I get an interview? I said, I didn't think that you know anything other than getting a grade. And he says, but I went to Harvard. He went to Harvard Extension School, which means you pay money to go there. There is no rejection to Harvard Extension School, but he didn't know that people knew that in Turkey. I went to grad school in Boston. Of course I knew about it. So that was strike one. And two, you had a 4.0. And three, you didn't give me any other reason to think that you know anything other than going to school. 3 strikes and you're out. And even though he went to Harvard Extension School, he didn't know what that meant. So when you propose a financial ratio, give people a reason to figure out why is that important. And when I calculate that number, what does it mean? How can I interpret that number? So let's start. There are groups of financial ratios. We're going to roughly group them as not short term, solvency ratios. We also have something called common size financial statements. I'm going to let you read that because the book explains it pretty well. It basically means you express balance sheet items as a percent of total assets, and you express the income statement items as a percent of total revenue and sales. That makes comparison across years and across firms a lot easier. So you read that in the book. I'm going to talk about these. Short-term solvency ratios. These are ratios that are and should be of interest to short-term creditors of the firm. So we're trying to basically figure out how likely the firm is to be able to meet their short-term obligations. The most famous of them is called the current ratio. And as you may have guessed, it involves current something. And it's current assets divided by current liabilities. And I'm going to write this as CA over CL. There's an alternative way to express this, and I'm doing this. Sometimes we add a 0 to a number or divide it by 1, but we do that in a very creative way to figure out stuff. I'm going to add 0 to this number. Let me see. Yeah, I'm going to add 0 to this number. So this is CA over CL, and I'm going to add CL over CL, or I'm going to deduct CL over CL and add back CL over CL. If I reorganize this, this is CA minus CL plus CL, and the whole thing is divided by CL. This first number is net working capital, right? Current assets minus current liabilities. So the first one is net working capital divided by current liabilities, and the second one is 1. So you can write that off as 1 plus net working capital. I'm going to use brackets even though I don't have to. So the second number is net working capital as a percent of current liabilities. So however you do it, the reason we do this, and the audience is short-term creditors. There's only one thing short-term creditors are interested in. A, do we get any swag when you do business with you? And 2, how likely you are to be able to pay me back. And this says, remember, current assets are assets we think that can be converted to cash within a year. Current liabilities are liabilities that are due within a year. This is a measure of ability to meet short-term obligations. All right, what does it mean? Or how can we interpret it? What's a good number? Obviously, you want this thing to be greater than 1. Why? Because if it's less than 1, you don't have enough current assets to pay back all your short-term obligations. In this day and age, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm going to tell you why. But in 1950s, 60s, if you had a firm that had a current ratio less than 1, you didn't want to do business with them as a short-term credit. Now, because of the advances in how banks do business and financial technology, current ratio is not as important as what it used to be. But it is what it is. So you want it to be greater than 1, and possibly 1.5 to 2. If I'm doing business with a firm, I want some sort of cushion. Okay, I don't want the firm just barely make it. Murphy's Law, right? What does Murphy's Law says? I'll give you first the polite version. The polite version, if anything could happen, it will happen. And the impolite version, stuff, and I'm not meaning stuff happens. Stuff happens to firms. Yeah, I have current assets. Part of those current assets are accounts receivable. Well, if one of my clients did not pay, I thought I had $10 million in there, but I don't. That's one of the stuff. So I want some sort of cushion. And let me tell you now why this is not as important as it used to be. If you look at, they're not publicly traded anymore, they're not private, but when they were public, if you looked at Dell's financial statements, they chronically had a current ratio that was much, much less than 1. By the way, there's a mathematical notation for much, much less than 1.